2,500 subs and counting. It's crazy that we've gotten to this point. So I want to thank you guys for all the support as of late. But we're back, week 10, 10 weeks that we've came every single Thursday, and we've made our predictions for the week. Of course, we're joined by a co-host now at this point. Amir, how you doing on this Thursday morning?
I'm doing great, man. I had a rough week last week, picking my NFL picks, but I'm back this week, ready to do better. I got some write-ups today and I'm ready to lock in.
Yeah, I added some stuff to the show, so we're going to fire through this first half of the episode relatively quickly. A little bit of a change of pace, but like you mentioned there, last week I was 11-3. Of course, the Bengals helped me out there on Sunday Night Football. Overall on the season, though, I'm guessing the game's at about a 70% correct rate. Amir, do you have your record for last week?
Man, I went 9-5 last week, man. It was rough. A couple games didn't go my way, but also for the season, I am currently at 90-46. So
A couple game difference. I mean, that's literally could change in 1 week. But let's go over here quickly to our week 9 players of the week. Of course, we have CJ Stroud, 480 total yards, now 5 touchdowns, a game winning drive with only like 30 seconds to go. Absolutely remarkable what CJ Stroud was able to do last week. And then Joe Burrow. To me, I had him as the player of the week because 350 yards. He was the PFF player of the week, 2 touchdowns, and the Bengals have won 4 in a row over 4 quality opponents. So to me, those are the 2 offensive players of the week. Is there anybody I'm missing on this side of the ball?
I think this is perfect. Stroud, man. Stroud is just proven to himself, why he could arguably be a top 10 quarterback in the league already, this season. And, Burrow, leading this Bengals team, arguably the hottest team in football right now. So I think these two are perfect picks.
Absolutely. But on the defensive side of the ball, how about Kenny Moore? Kenny Moore the second, of course, cornerback for the Indianapolis Colts. If you didn't know, 8 tackles, 2 interceptions, and both interceptions turned into pick sixes. So absolutely insane game from Kenny Moore. But then on the other side of the ball, I guess on the front seven, compared to the secondary, I showed some love to Max Crosby. It was your prediction for the player of the week last week. So maybe they gave him that extra bump to be on the screen here. But 8 tackles, 3 sacks, a big win in this new era looked Las Vegas Raiders. Is there anybody I'm missing from this side of the ball?
No, man, Kenny Moore single-handedly won in that game. I mean, two pick sixes. I mean, you cannot make that up. Like anytime you have two pick sixes, you're pretty much guaranteed to win. It's pretty much impossible for you to lose. And so, Max Crosby on the other hand, man, I think we got to start having this serious convo about Max Crosby being a top 3 pass rusher in the league this year. I mean, the dude week in and week out is just applying pressure to quarterbacks, making it tough on them and being consistent despite all the rumors, all the struggles this team is going through.
Well, I actually disagree. I think we're missing someone from the screen. We're talking about Amir Stewart, future first round pick in the NFL draft. One
No
interception,
way.
1 pass breakup, 2 tackles last week. Of course, you now have a win and get in situation game this upcoming weekend, of course, against Marion. Talk us through this game. I know you have a big game coming up, and of course, you win, you get into the playoffs.
Yeah, it's a big game, man. Marion, I think, is ranked top 5 in the country. I think number 5th in the country. We're pretty much fighting for a top 25 spot. And I think we won 4 straight. They just lost this last game after blowing a huge lead. And so, we're going at their place. We're pretty much fighting to get in, and our backs are against the wall. We're the hungrier team. We pretty much have nothing to lose. And so, I'm expecting a huge game from us this week.
Big game this weekend. And of course, once I get the link to the game, I will post it on my Instagram story. So give us a follow over there. And of course, we're all supporting you here this weekend, Amir. Good luck. But of course, back to the NFL. You're not there yet, but you will be one day. Our week 9 top 10. This was in last Thursday's video. Of course, you see it on your screen as on the left side, 1 through 5, right side, 6 through 10. Your predictions here, is there anybody you think dropped out of this list, or do you think anybody joined this list?
Um, if I had to pick anybody to drop out of this list, honestly, I don't think so. The only team I can maybe think of is maybe the Cowboys.
Okay. I mean, that could be. I think
Or
that the
Buffalo.
Cowboys held on. I have the Bills dropping out of my top 10. Now, let me preface, they are number 11. So they dropped out, but they're still in the top 10. And of course, it's just because we've yet to see them win that big game, at least this season. They've blown out teams like the Commanders, but they haven't beaten teams like the Bengals. But right outside with the Bills, you have teams like the Steelers, who I was close to putting in the top 10 despite no quarterback. And then also the Seahawks, after getting blown out by the Ravens. Oh, they're still 5-3, top of their division. So I wanted to show them some love. But here at the number 10 spot, this might be a hot take over the Bills, but I'm going to go with the Cleveland Browns. I'm going to be a homer. This is a team that shut out the Cardinals last week. I know it's not a big statement victory, but we're still winning, and our defense is the best in football. But Amir, as I go through 6 through 10, please just stop me if you have any questions or you just want to make a comment. But the Cowboys here, they fall one spot. They lost, to maybe the best team in football. So again, they drop a spot, but not too much. You can't really dock them. There's levels to this, is a good way to put it. The Dolphins here, they lost in Germany to the Kansas City Chiefs. They dropped from 5 to 8. Again, still maybe the most explosive offense in the NFL, but they have struggled to win that big game. It's a common theme here with these bottom teams where we know the talent they have, but they haven't won the big game. For Miami, they lost against the Eagles. They lost against the Chiefs. Again, two of the best teams in the league, but they haven't even looked good in those games, and the Bills as well. So the Dolphins, again, super talented, but we're waiting for that big win, the big statement win. The Jaguars, they're coming off of a bye week. They go to play a fully healthy and even better San Francisco 49ers team that now has Chase Young at their disposal. The Jaguars here, again, they're fully rested. They've won 5 straight. I think they're in a position now where if they can get a big win over the Niners, I think they're going to put themselves in a position where we all have to start taking them more serious than we have, as their wins this year haven't always been the prettiest. But again, they're 6-2. And at number 6, they're going to stay put, the San Francisco 49ers. Again, they're also coming off of a bye week here. And again, they could be lower on this list. They could be higher. I'm not going to argue too much about it, but they got better over this bye week. They brought in Chase Young for basically nothing. I guess a second-round pick, but they brought in Chase Young, so they got better, at least more talented. And to me, we know they can be the number 1 team if they get hot. So at number 6 spot, any thoughts about the 6 through 10 here?
No, honestly, I can't even argue against it. You hit it right in the money with the Dolphins. The Dolphins haven't beaten a team over 500, in more than a year. So, they haven't won that big game. And the Niners, they're fresh off a bye, so I wouldn't, panic to bump them any lower than 6. They still have arguably the lower roster in the league. Right. And the Browns are proving themselves. I mean, they've earned this top 10 spot, despite Deshaun, playing inconsistent, in these beginning weeks. But now, he's playing great football these past 2 weeks, and the Browns are looking hot right now.
Moving into the top 5, we are going to bump down the Detroit Lions. They drop 1 spot here coming off the bye week, and it's not that they got worse or had an injury or whatever the case may be. They're just a team, in my opinion, that just has been playing at a better level. And unlike the number 4 team, the Lions haven't won that big game either, where the number 4 team has beaten the Seattle Seahawks, which is a team that beat the Detroit Lions. They competed in a game with the Baltimore Ravens, which blew out the Lions, and that was with an injured quarterback. So to me, the Lions, again, they're still a top 5 team, one of the best offenses and defenses in the league, but we're waiting for that really big win. But at number 4, I don't care if it's an overstatement. This was my preseason Super Bowl prediction, and their quarterback's healthy. So to me, this team is back and maybe better than ever. They jump up 6 spots in my rankings in 4 consecutive weeks. They have beat the Cardinals at Arizona. Again, not a big win, but it's at Arizona. Then they beat Seattle at Seattle. And in the last 2 weeks, they've beat San Francisco and Buffalo. 4 straight competent opponents, or at least aside from the Cardinals, and they've beat them all, and pretty handily at that. So the Bengals, to me, with a fully healthy Joe Burrow, this is the exact team I thought that they were coming into the season. So to me, at number 4. But at number 3, we have their division foe, the Baltimore Ravens, a team that has a 115-point differential this season. No other team has better than an 80. So the Ravens have been winning in dominant fashion, and someone's always stepping up. If Mark Andrews is down, you have Keaton Mitchell stepping up, or you have Justice Hill having a splash play here or there. This team just feels different with Todd Monken running the offense, but they're at my number 3 spot. At number 2, Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City Chiefs, to me, they had a big win in Germany. Of course, despite not even playing their best football, Mahomes is playing questionable right now, but they're still winning games at a high rate. It just showed you how special this team can be, even when they're not clicking on all cylinders. And speaking of not clicking on all cylinders, the Philadelphia Eagles are still my number one team in football, maybe the most complete roster in football. And again, I still don't think we've seen their best version of football. but you will get into it here in a moment. But we're going to really see who this Eagles team really is here in the next month or two of football. But any thoughts about the top 10 and maybe dive into my number one spot?
Honestly, this is probably like the most I've agreed with you with your top 10. The only thing I would say, I move the Niners over Detroit right now. Detroit, just like you just said, we haven't seen them win a huge game yet. And their losses have been pretty bad. I mean, they've kind of dwindled. The defense has dwindled against really good teams. And so, I'm kind of curious to see if Detroit is really legit. It's a lot of hype building around them. It was a point in the season where their offense was top 10 and defense was top 10. And so I'm really curious to see in these upcoming weeks.
Absolutely. But moving over here to the teams that are on bye in week 10, we have the Chiefs, the Eagles, the Dolphins. Of course, the Chiefs and Eagles are coming off of that game in Germany. And then you have the Los Angeles Rams. They're struggling. They just signed the GOAT Carson Wentz, so I'm super happy for Carson Wentz to get a job here. But out of all four of these teams, of course, we have three top 10 teams in my rankings at least. Who do you think needs this bye week more? You have a team like the Eagles. They've won three straight. You have a team like the Los Angeles Rams, which have won, or they've lost three straight. And I messed up. There's a typo there, but the Chiefs, they've won like 5 or 6 straight. So who do you think needs this bye week the most? Is a good way to put it.
Definitely the Eagles. I mean, the Eagles really need to take this bye week to get healthy, really get right, because this second half of the schedule is going to be really tough. And last year, Philly kind of had a easy schedule, and so like the second half of the season was kind of great for them to kind of coast through it, nice and easy, get right. But man, this second half of the schedule, I mean, they got Kansas City, Buffalo, the Niners, the Cowboys, the Seahawks, and
Yes,
so
right.
which is challenging, but I still have faith in them. Um, I think they'll still finish with the 1 seed in the NFC, but they need this more than anybody right now.
Absolutely. Just like for the point that you mentioned, I mean, like the Rams technically need to win more, but the Eagles have such a tough schedule coming up. You need to get healthy. But this is something new I added to the show, the race for Caleb, or I guess you could say Marvin Harrison Jr. But this is the updated draft order, or I guess the bottom of the league, where the Cardinals today would have the number 1 pick. The Bears would have 2 and 3, the second pick being via the Carolina Panthers, and then in that big Bryce Young trade last year. The Giants are 4 and the Patriots are 5. Do you see any of these teams staying in the top 5, or well, I guess a better question is, what team do you see leaving this top 5 compared to the others?
Honestly, I don't see any of these teams leaving the top 5. I mean, these teams are absolutely horrible. Daniel Jones, is done. The Bears are obviously tanking. I think they're going to move off of Fields. The Cardinals have been dragging on Kyler Murray's injury to kind of, stall time and buy time to keep losing games. And the Patriots, I don't see them seeing Mac Jones as the future. And so I think at this point, all 5 of these teams are all like, man, we're all within 1 game of this number 1 spot. We have to tank as much as we can.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like all of them are like legitimately, like you said, 1 game away from getting that generational prospect in Caleb Williams. Of course, NFL production is never guaranteed, but the prospect is there in Caleb. And of course, that's really all that GMs need to see to make that splash trade. But moving over to Thursday night, we'll make this relatively quick. A combined 3-14 record. Justin Fields with his thumb injury could be back for this game, but given the fact that you just said they're trying to tank, I'm assuming we're going to get Tyson Bagent tonight versus Bryce Young, 2 teams that have obviously struggled given their records. And it's, I guess, the DJ Moore revenge game. DJ Moore, of course, was with Carolina the last couple of years. And then he was traded to Chicago this offseason in that big Bryce Young trade. I guess your early predictions on this game, to me, I guess there's not really much else to talk about.
I mean, honestly, NFL, what are we doing with these games? I mean, seriously, you got the Who versus the Who? I mean, really? I mean, come on now. Like, I'm better off just going to sleep early tonight, man. I'm not turning this game on. I maybe look at some highlights after. But I'm going to Bears here. The Panthers have struggled big time on the road. Their offensive line is absolutely trash. The defense is trash. And so I'm taking the Bears here. I'm keeping this simple.
Yeah, I'm going to keep the Bears at home. When there's 2 bad teams like this, I'm just going to go with the team that has the home field advantage. So again, I will take the Bears here as well. There's not much explanation. If the Panthers didn't trade their pick, this game would be fighting for a top pick in the draft. So I think the Bears will win this game. And again, either way, this game helps the Bears because either they lose and get a better draft pick, or they win and even and worsen the Carolina Panthers record. So either or, the Bears win in this game. But that's going to do it for Thursday night. Let's get into our first Sunday matchup. We have the Indianapolis Colts and the New England Patriots. Of course, it's the second ever game in Germany. Of course, when we know that these games take place on foreign land, they're usually defensive battles and they're usually low scoring games. We saw two explosive offenses last week. They didn't really take off until the end of the third quarter in the Miami Dolphins and the Kansas City Chiefs. In this matchup, again, what are we doing? I would rather see any other matchup here in Germany. But we have the Colts at 4-5. I guess they're kind of respectable given that the injuries that they've had this year. And then the Patriots, on the other hand, they're 2-7, of course, a bottom 5 team in the league. Who would you have in this matchup? I mean, to me, I'm actually going to go with New England here because I think there's no other coach better at taking the opposing team's best receiving option out of the game than Bill Belichick. I think Bill Belichick is going to take Michael Pittman out of this game, and the Colts are going to be relying on the running backs. And if the running backs can't get going, it's going to be Gardner Minshew versus Gardner Minshew and an injured Josh Downs trying to take down the Patriots. So to me, that's just not a recipe for success. So I think Ramondre has a pretty big game here in Germany, and give me the Patriots here actually at home.
Yeah, so right here, I'm actually going Patriots too. I think there's no other, there's no better coach that's good at scheming up against young, inexperienced quarterbacks. And so, I think Bill Belichick is going to do a great job of throwing a lot at Minshew this game. It's in Germany as well, correct?
Yes, it's in Germany. Yeah, as you see
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
big flag.
Yeah, I'm gonna say so. It's in Germany, and so it's an even playing field. And Mac Jones right now is in improvement mode. His back is against the wall. He's pretty much like, all right, man, I probably got one or two more opportunities at best. And man, it's like now it's like, I have to win or I'm out. And so I'm taking New England.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, not much explanation there. It's a game on even land, and like you just mentioned, if Mac Jones can't get a win here, there's going to have to be some serious questions about his future in New England. But moving over to the Sunday 1 o'clock games, we have a stacked 1 o'clock slate of games. But kicking off here with the top 10 matchup, at least in my rankings, the Cleveland Browns, the Baltimore Ravens, AFC North rivalry. These teams met, I think, in week 3 or 4. The Ravens blew us out, but again, DTR was our quarterback, and he is not ready for the pros, is a good way to put it. Deshaun Watson last week, I guess he had his best game as a Brown. Maybe, that's up for debate, of course. But the Browns, maybe the best defense in football. The Ravens here at home, they have outscored opponents. We've talked about it earlier, but they outscored opponents 119-40 at home this season. So it doesn't look great for the Cleveland Browns, but who do you have in this matchup in the AFC North rivalry?
So I'm gonna go with the 6-point underdogs here. I'm going with the Browns here. And maybe I'm a little biased, so maybe it might be clouding my judgment. But shoot, I mean, Deshaun's been playing well. His past 2 games starting, I mean, he's thrown 73% completion rate, 500 yards and 4 touchdowns. So I mean, he's back to, playing something worth the money he's getting paid for. And this Ravens, their offense isn't high powered enough to kind of dominate us like they did, earlier in the season. Earlier in the season, DTR was starting. I think he threw 3 picks, 0 touchdowns.
Yeah,
And
I
so,
mean, wasn't pretty.
right. And so it's not much you can really do when you turn the ball over 3-4 times. And so I think it's going to change this week. I'm taking Cleveland on the road here.
And honestly, just so you guys know at home, I'm not just saying this to agree with you. You'll see later on, but I'm going to agree. I think the Browns will win this game. In week 4, if you remember, the defense kept us in that game for the majority of it. And it was really, the DTR that kind of just sold us the game. Obviously, he wasn't ready to play against a high caliber team like the Baltimore Ravens. So to me, I think the Browns, I think, Watson, even though he's been very shaky, he's been getting better and better. And I think this could be a potential week where we finally get that splash Deshaun Watson week. Maybe not his prime version, but I think this could be a week where he plays his best game as a Cleveland Brown. And if he can do that, and the Browns defense can be solid, I'm not even saying that they play at the level they've been, but if they can be solid and Watson can take that step, I think we can actually win this game on the road to make this division even tighter. And of course, you'll see that later on. But I think Watson's going to have a pretty big day. But any last thoughts about this AFC North game is, again, if we win, we're 6-3, they're 7-3. And I guess, again, it makes the division that much closer.
Yeah, man, if we win this game, man, I'm going to be so happy as a Browns fan. Man, I'm just waiting for that breakthrough game. I'm still kind of concerned about our receiving core and us kind of being limited for stretching the ball vertically downfield. But I mean, man, Amari Cooper finally seemed like he's getting in his groove. They're finally getting him involved and trusting him like a true number one wide receiver. So I'm excited for this game.
Yeah. But again, both taking the Cleveland Browns on the road. Then we have the Green Bay Packers going to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. Again, I'm going to say it at Heinz Field. That's what it should be called still. But two historic franchises, two teams that also have a lot of questions to figure out. Green Bay, they're 3-5. They finally got a much needed win last week, but it wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty by any means of it. But then Pittsburgh, they're at home here. They're 5-3. All 5 of their wins have been by 1 score or less. So Pittsburgh has been skating by, but again, they have some injuries to the quarterback as well. Who do you have in this matchup? As to me, I might just play it safe because they're kind of in the middle. I can see maybe an Aaron Jones big day, but I'm going to go with Pittsburgh with TJ Watt, and they get after Jordan Love, make it difficult. Pittsburgh improves to 6-3 at home here.
Yeah, I'm taking Pittsburgh as well. As I hate saying it, and I hate picking Pittsburgh almost every single week, but man, this team does not go away. The Packers' offensive line have been absolutely terrible. Man, Jordan Love is fighting for his life back there, and so I think that they're going to make it hard on him. It's going to be a low-scoring game, and Pittsburgh is going to force about like 3-4 turnovers and dominate this game.
Yeah, I think TJ Watt should definitely have his way because David Bakhtiari has not been healthy pretty much all season, and that's even if he's on the field. But again, both of us taking Pittsburgh here. But then moving over to maybe the game of the week, the San Francisco 49ers are at 5-3. Again, they were 5-0, but then they've lost 3 straight games. Maybe the NFL has figured them out, or maybe it's just some bad luck. But they go to Jacksonville to take on a team that's won 5 straight games. And again, we talk about it every week. Those wins haven't been pretty for Jacksonville, but they are still 6-2, and they've won 5 straight games, despite not looking pretty. 2 top 10 teams here for me. Again, 6-7. It's a very up in the air game, and I'm very interested to see who you pick for this game. But again, 2 teams coming off a bye, 2 teams that need this win. I think both teams, I think for San Fran, if you lose this game and you lose 4 straight games, I think you're in some trouble. But then Jacksonville, this is that big game, that big win we've been waiting for, aside from that Buffalo game, which was kind of handed to them. But who do you have in this matchup as the Niners? They just got Chase Young as well.
Yeah, so I'm taking the Niners here. I think they're going to be the team that benefits the most off the bye week this year. They kind of needed that week to get healthy, get back right and regroup. And shoot, I think they're going to be full strength this week as well. If I'm not mistaken, Trent Williams is back, Debo's back, Greenlaw's, fully healthy and back. And so I'm taking the Niners here on the road. This is their get right game to get right back on track.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you here. I think Chase Young, maybe he doesn't play all of the snaps. Of course, he's still getting integrated into the offense. But you touched on it there. I mean, this Niners team is the healthiest it's been all season, and that's including week 1. So it's going to be a scary sight to see how this team can bounce back. Obviously, they're a little angry, to keep it PG, and they desperately want to get back to the top of the mountain, which they were for the first month or so of the season. But I will agree with you here. I think they make it difficult for Jacksonville. I think this game is actually going to be a high-scoring shootout, which may be surprising for a team like San Fran. But I think I agree with you here. San Fran will get that much-needed win to avoid losing 4 straight games. But then we move over to New Orleans. They're 5-4. They go to Minnesota to take on the also 5-4 Vikings. The Saints, on one hand, they've looked okay the last couple of weeks. I think they've won 2 straight games. Derek Carr has, found a little bit of a groove with this offense, despite not using his number 1 wide receiver all the time in Chris Olave. And of course, they're getting amazing production from Taysom Hill. We were talking about it before the show, but I saw a stat that said the Saints over the last couple of years are 17-1 when Taysom Hill has 7 or more carries on the ground. Absolutely insane. You see a stat like that and you're like, why don't they do that more often? But then Minnesota, on the other hand, of course, prayers up to Kirk Cousins. Is you hate to see a player like that go down with injury for such a long period of time. But then they traded for Josh Dobbs on Tuesday. Keep in mind. So, and then on Sunday, that following Sunday, so 4 days later, he comes out and he leads a game-winning second half, I guess. And he had an amazing second half, a great game-winning drive, won the game for the Vikings, despite not even knowing the first names of his teammates. And this team has won 4 straight games. Do you think New Orleans, being the veteran team here, can take advantage of Dobbs, or do you think Dobbs keeps this magic going?
Honestly, I'm taking New Orleans here on the road. I personally feel like that game was kind of just like a one-hit wonder. Um, you know, this Saints team is still fighting for a season. And so, they have everything to prove here, everything to go in and take this game. And, despite, Dobbs winning this game last week, Dobbs still fumbled the ball 3 times. So he still struggled against pressure, when the Falcons decided to, actually rush the quarterback. And so I think the Saints defense is going to make it tough on them. The pass rush is going to get to them, and they're going to take this win.
Yeah, I just saw a stat that said the Saints actually haven't beat a team with a winning record all season. But again, I will agree with you here. I think Dobbs, it gets, just because of his magic late in the game, it gets overshadowed that the turnover struggles he had in this offense. I think they will, fix that a little bit here coming into this week, more continuity. But I agree with you here. I think at the Saints on the road, they will improve to 6-4. And again, they haven't been pretty, but if you're 6-4 on top of that division, I mean, they're going to separate themselves pretty soon here as the Bucs are struggling, the Panthers are obviously struggling, and the Falcons, if they can't get a win, the Saints might be finding themselves in a comfortable lead in that division. But just to be clear, we're both taking the Saints here on the road.
Yep, taking the Saints.
Both taking the Saints on the road. We will come back to that Tennessee matchup. We're going to go here to the Houston at Cincinnati matchup. A lot of people, this is their favorite upset pick of the week, and we'll have to get into that later if that's your upset of the week. But the Texans, they have a quarterback that has had an historic start to his NFL career. I mean, he just threw for basically 500 yards and 5 touchdowns and had a game-winning drive against the Tampa Bay Bucs. C.J. Stroud has been on another level. I don't know if I've ever seen a rookie come into the NFL and play this dominant this early. Maybe Andrew Luck. But, C.J. Stroud has just been on a different level right now. And this Texans team is 4-4 despite all the odds. But on the flip side, you have the Bengals. To me, again, still my AFC favorites. I've been saying it all season. And they have won 4 straight against 4 quality opponents. I'm going to keep it short and sweet here. I think the Bengals will, continue to be dominant. I think they're going to get hot and be hot for a long time. Give me the Bengals at home here, despite the magic from C.J. Stroud. But who do you have in this matchup?
I'm taking Cincy here. Just like you just said, we haven't seen a quarterback come in and play this great and so long. And I'm high on CJ, but he's not ready for Cincy. I mean, this Cincy team is hot. This is, in my opinion, the second hottest team in football behind Baltimore. And so I think this is them just going to keep adding fuel to the fire, and they'll improve to 6-3.
6-3 for the Bengals. I mean, again, they're actually making me somewhat smart. I guess is a good way to put it. But then Tennessee with Will Levis, they had a crazy debut game 2 weeks ago, but then he got humbled a little bit there against the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're on the road in this one. They're playing a Tampa Bay team that has lost 4 straight games. Of course, last week was in heartbreaking fashion. Who do you think? I guess I'll ask you this. Now, who do you think wins this game? But also, I want to ask you this. It could be a different answer. Who do you think needs this win more going forward? The Titans or the Tampa Bay Bucs? Of course, both at 3-5.
So here I'm taking the Titans here. This game is kind of interesting, because the Bucs, you kind of don't know what to expect from them. But it's kind of weird because Levis, obviously, he had a great first game. Last week he still played kind of solid, despite playing against that tough defense. He was still making the right reads.
Yes.
Taking care of the football up until late in the game. And I'm kind of curious to see how he's going to respond to this win, to that loss. If he's going to kind of dwindle, how most quarterbacks will, or if he's going to respond and play better. But I'm still going to take Tennessee. Derrick Henry is healthy. We can expect for the Bucs to kind of get a dose of Derrick Henry this game. And the Bucs defense have played terrible recently. I mean, last game they gave him 500 yards. Gave up a game-winning drive with less than a minute left. And so for that case, I'm taking the Titans.
Yeah, I was going to agree with you with the Titans, but just for the sake of arguing, well, I guess not arguing, but just having a different answer here, maybe giving me the edge this weekend. I'm going to be strategic, and I'm going to take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here for the sole fact that Baker Mayfield has not been the problem. And I think this offense hasn't been the problem. It's a good way to put it. Rachaad White's playing his best career ball. Same with Cade Otton. Not to mention you have the 2 star-studded receivers. If this defense can figure it out and play like they should be playing and at least limit this offense of Tennessee, I think Tampa Bay at home should be able to get back on track. But moving over to the 4 o'clock games, we have the Detroit Lions going to the Los Angeles Chargers at SoFi Stadium to take on, of course, the Chargers. The Lions for Jared Goff, we know he plays completely different when he's on the road compared to home, as he is definitely he definitely benefits from playing at home in that dome. But then he goes to Los Angeles, a team that doesn't really have a home, I guess, atmosphere. You know, the fans aren't. It's not like the 12th man in Seattle, or it's not like the dog pound in Cleveland. The Chargers struggle to retain fans. Regardless, I think the Lions come into this game. They're 6-2. It should be a high scoring game, but I will take Jared Goff and the Lions in this one to just get, to just, I guess, out coach the Chargers. I mean, at the end of the day, the Chargers have a glaring hole, and that is their head coaching spot.
Man, this game was tough, because for me, like you guys know, I'm still not fully sold on the Lions. But man, this Chargers offense last week looked so bad against the Jets. They've been struggling, surprisingly, despite all the talent they have. The defense is still struggling. And so I think the Lions are just a better matchup, from top to bottom. And so I'm taking Detroit on the road here.
I mean, Detroit on the road, they get David Montgomery back this week. They're playing a Chargers team that doesn't have Josh Palmer. They don't have Mike Williams. They're going to be relying on Quentin Johnston, of course, rookie out of TCU, to, I guess, help relieve the load of Keenan Allen. And, of course, last week, Keenan Allen and Austin Ekeler, they led their team to a 20-point win, but they can only do so much. And, of course, this is a much better defense here in Detroit compared to the Jets. But, again, I will agree with you here. We're going to take Detroit on the road, play it safe, and, of course, roll with the favorite. But then we have an interesting matchup here. And, again, we talked about this off the show. Why? I don't know. Honestly, it might have been a waste of both of our times. But you have a team in Atlanta, I think, with the second worst coach in the league in Arthur Smith, a guy that refuses to use his playmakers in guys like Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson, two guys that were top 8 picks in the draft, generational talents, some might say, and he just doesn't use them. As a Gators fan, it frustrates me to watch Kyle Pitts basically be a secondary, a fourth option in an offense. They go to Arizona to take on the Cardinals, which have a very disrespected and underrated quarterback returning to their lineup in Kyler Murray. This team has lost 6 straight games. They just traded away Josh Dobbs. And, of course, they tried to experiment with Clayton Tune, but they get Kyler Murray back. And I think that opens up a lot of avenues for this team. However, Arizona, I think this could be an upset at, beating the Falcons. I just think we're going to need a week or two for Kyler to get back to Kyler Murray. And give me Atlanta on the road here to, I guess, behind Tyler Algier and Cordell Patterson.
So here, this game is interesting, just like you just said. I mean, we don't know why the Falcons are not using their playmakers, which I don't understand why. We're watching Kyle Pitts, the beginning part of his career, just be wasted. I mean, the dude
he needs a change of scenery, and I think, soon.
ASAP. I mean, the dude came into his draft classes, in my opinion, the most potential by far. And, people were already listing him as like a top 5 tight end the second he got drafted, which is absurd. And his season is being wasted. And so, but I'm still going to go with the Falcons here. I think for Kyler, just like you just said, he's going to need a week or two to kind of get back acclimated. And I think right now, I mean, Arizona's kind of in a position where it's like, they don't want to win games, to keep it simple. I mean, they see a generational talent in the future, coming up in this draft this year. And Kyler Murray realizes, man, I'm out of here anyway. And so, it doesn't really matter if we win or lose. And so for that, I'm taking the Falcons.
Yeah, I think it's an audition for him, like you touched on there, because he's playing for his job, not only for the Cardinals, maybe, but for a different franchise. So it's definitely an audition last couple of weeks here for Kyler Murray. But who knows? There's always a chance if Kyler Murray plays like himself, this team goes after Marvin Harrison instead. Of course, that's always a possibility. We're going to make this one quick. The Giants at 2-7. Daniel Jones came back from a neck injury, and then he tore his ACL. So he's done for the season. Definitely a lot of questions there for New York this offseason as far as their draft capital. And then Dallas, they're at home here. They're 16-point favorites. Absolutely insane line. But I'll keep it quick here. I think Dallas controls this game from start to finish. I think in typical Dallas fashion, they will make this game interesting. They might not pull away into the fourth quarter, but give me Dallas here at home.
Right here, I'm taking Cowboys by 40.
Cowboys by 40. And then I guess a more interesting matchup. That's a better way to put it. The Washington Commanders at 4-5. they look like a different team now because they just traded away a bunch of their star talent. They go to Seattle to take on a team that just got blown out 37-3. So you have the Commanders that are kind of revamped here. They play Seattle's trying to get back on track. Who do you have in this matchup here?
I'm taking Seattle here. This Washington team, I don't know what they're doing at the trade deadline. I think it's going to come back to haunt them. The defense has already been struggling as enough. I could see Geno Smith, just completely dominating this game from start to finish.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, not a bunch of analysis here just because, I mean, at this point in the year, we kind of know what these teams are. Now, so I would agree with you here. I think Kenneth Walker is going to have a big game. I think if Washington wants to win, it's going to have to be on the ground behind Brian Robinson. But I guess how quickly can they dominate on the ground before Seattle gets up? And then they kind of have to change to passing all the time because Seattle, despite getting blown out last week, all season, they've been dominant against receiving options. So Washington, if they want to win, in my opinion, it's going to have to be on the back of Brian Robinson. But on Sunday Night Football, if I can actually change the slide here, there we go. We have the New York Jets, of course, lost last week to the Chargers. Wasn't a very pretty outing for really the whole game. And then you go to Las Vegas to play the Raiders. New head coach Antonio Pierce has this team. There's just a different vibe around this team, and all the players seem happy now. I don't know if you saw the rumors, but I guess the reason McDaniels was fired was because there was basically a team meeting after 2 weeks ago, that game. And Josh McDaniels basically asked the players, what do we need to change to get back on the right track? And all the players, I guess, just immediately started dissing Josh McDaniels. They basically said, we need a new head coach. And Antonio Pierce then stepped up and he interrupted the conversation. And he got the guys back in check. That is when Mark Davis saw that and he fired Josh McDaniels and hired Antonio Pierce. I don't know if you saw that story. Absolutely insane. Basically, Josh McDaniels got fired for getting dissed by his players. But who do you have in this matchup here?
I'm going to take the Raiders at home here. I think the Raiders are 4-0 at home this season.
Yes.
And this Jets team, the offense is terrible. Just like you just said, I mean, the Raiders have a boost of morale from Antonio Pierce. The defense is playing better. The offense last week, despite Vontae Adams not doing much.
Josh Jacobs had his best game.
Exactly. Josh Jacobs had his best game. And this week, we can see the same exact thing. I think the Raiders are going to dominate on the ground. I don't see the Jets team, controlling the line of scrimmage like how they tried to do last week. And so for that case, I'm taking the Raiders.
We just got an alert that said there's going to be a LeBron museum to open up in Akron, Ohio here pretty soon. Of course, it says there's going to be never before seen memorabilia, completely off topic, but I just thought it was a very interesting headline there. You're a big LeBron fan. I'm sure you'll be there opening day.
LeBron for president.
LeBron for president. Last matchup here, Monday Night Football. We have the Broncos coming off of a bye week. They've won 2 straight games. Maybe they're getting things going in the right direction. And then you have the Bills. The Bills, they struggled and they got really, I think the scoreboard did them justice against the Bengals there on Sunday Night Football. But we have 2 teams here that are trying to figure things out. I think the Bills will probably squeak out a win here. I think we talked about it before the show. I'll let you touch on it, but definitely a potential upset here. But I will trust Sean McDermott. I will trust Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen at home here to pick up the much-needed win to get back on the right foot.
Yeah, so I'm taking the Bills. The Bills are a team where it's like, usually they respond great after a loss. They go from playing absolutely horrible to the next week, Josh Allen having a crazy game. And so I'm taking the Bills. I don't think Denver's ready for this team yet, despite how well Russell Wilson is looking. And so I'm taking Buffalo at home here.
Definitely a potential upset like we just talked about. But of course, we went with the Bills there to clarify for Monday Night Football upset of the week. Again, these are just predicts that aren't always going to coincide with our actual prediction. These are just teams that we want you guys to look out for because they can be an upset this weekend. For me, it actually coincided with my pick. I have the Cleveland Browns beating the Baltimore Ravens. We both did. And I think, honestly, even though they're a top 10 team in my eyes, there is a huge, the media views these teams super differently as far as the Browns and the Ravens, as far as playoff success, at least predicting. I think the Browns this week can put the world on notice, and I think we're going to have a pretty good outing from our $260 man.
Yeah, I could definitely see that happening. And for me, I trust the Browns, for the actual game this week, for actual win. So for my pick, I'm gonna go over to the Broncos game. This Bills team has been, completely iffy. You know, the defense hasn't been playing up to par, how it usually does. Man, this Broncos team, let's talk about their defense hitting a complete 180. I mean, the past 3 weeks, I mean, they've held the Chiefs to 19 points,
Yeah.
and then 9 points in the second matchup. The Packers are 17 points. They're forcing turnovers. Russell Wilson is surprisingly is playing good this year. It seems like him and Sean Payton are kind of, fixing his mistakes that he's been dealing with, last year and earlier this season. And so for that reason, I'm taking the Broncos for the potential upset.
A little bit of technical difficulties there, but we're back, of course, at the end of the episode. But moving over to our hot takes, I have Kyler Murray. And again, of course, he's returning the football for the Cardinals. But my hot take is that it's more of a long-term hot take, and we'll have to revisit this in the future. But to me, I have that Kyler Murray, maybe not this week, but next week, he's going to start winning games for this Cardinals team, and he's going to cost them a Caleb Williams, I guess, potentially draft or I guess quarterback selection pick. I can't talk right now, but stick with me. He's going to basically cost them the number one pick, is my overall point here. And unlike other years, there is going to be no trading out of that number one pick. There's going to be no trading for that number one pick. So if Kyler Murray comes in and he wins a couple games, this team might be third, fourth in the draft order. And of course, they're going to be out of the position to draft Caleb Williams. So I think Kyler Murray, sure, will he be on Carolina next year? Probably not. But I think he's going to go out with the last laugh, as he's going to cost them Caleb Williams in the long run.
Honestly, that's a great pick. And we were just talking about this, this week, it's going to be interesting to see, how the Cardinals and how the Falcons kind of manage this game. We don't know if Kyler Murray is going to come out and, make an immediate impact and start winning games, or if he's kind of just going to still, milk everything out, take his time, and, just help the Cardinals up to, pretty much take and get Caleb Williams. And so for my hot take, um, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a hot take, but it kind of is, just because the Jacksonville Jaguars are a great team so far. But I'm taking the Niners to dominate Jacksonville, this game completely. And I think they're going to come in fully healthy after the bye week. I feel like they've regrouped and they're going to show why, don't count us out. Don't forget about us. We're still San Fran football. Shanahan's going to come out, make it hard on Trevor Lawrence. And so I'm taking the Niners to dominate Jacksonville and hop back on track.
I mean, they should, like you mentioned there. It feels like now the tables. It feels like they went from being just the juggernaut to now they're being, like, I guess, underrated is a good way to put it. So I feel like they are kind of coming to this week. I feel like they have something to prove. So look out for San Fran, and I don't think it's a bad hot take at all. But this is probably a hot take as well. I'm actually going to have Deshaun Watson as my player of the week, for the simple fact that I think this is going to be the best game he has as a Cleveland Brown, at least in his career so far with us. And I think we're going to go out there and we're going to beat the Baltimore Ravens on the road in M&T Bank Stadium. I think Deshaun Watson, again, best game as a Brown, and he's going to get the player of the week for me.
And so for me, I'm going to go Jared Goff. This Chargers secondary is still struggling. Despite them getting rid of J.C. Jackson, they've still been struggling, even more. And so, the Lions defense has struggled against great offenses. We saw it early in the year. We saw it against Seahawks. We even saw it against Kansas City without, the number one player. And so, I think Jared Goff is gonna go in. This game might end up being a shootout. Um, you know, despite Quentin Johnson taking more of a role, I think it might be a shootout, and I think the Lions are gonna just win this game. Goff might end up throwing for 300-400 yards and a couple of touchdowns to match that.
I can promise you next week. Well, I'll say this: we have a lot of quarterbacks on this screen. Typically, we stay away from quarterbacks on this screen. I just,
Yeah.
not intentionally, but we do. This week we just have three of them. I will say next week, be prepared. My player of the week is going to be Carson Wentz, because he is going to be the next quarterback for the Rams.
Who?
Okay, of course, we're talking about well, he was going to be a Hall of Famer, but he was ran out of Philly. I guess that's one way to look at it. But any last thoughts before we get out of here, Amir? Of course, some technical difficulties. along the way. But you also have a very big matchup this weekend. So first off, thank you for making time for the podcast. I know you need to kind of lock in and focus on that win and get in game. But any last thoughts before we get out of here? And I guess I'll see you next Thursday.
I know, man. I'm excited for this week. Going back and looking at these games, man, this could either be, you know, this could very well be in another, 8-5 week, 8-6 week, whatever it is. And a lot of these games are really close. And so I'm hoping I can, predict these games right, get back on track and catch up.
Absolutely. But I guess any last thoughts about your game this weekend? Of course, Collegiate Corner, you have a win and get in situation. I know you talked about it earlier, but any last thoughts here? Of course, we're going to be putting out the link for your game over on my Instagram. So again, follow me there. But we're going to be putting your game over there. But any last thoughts before or about your game this weekend?
It's gonna be great, man. I'm excited. I feel like growing up, we kind of dream for opportunities like this, to kind of prove ourselves, on a national scale and kind of put ourselves on the map. I've been banged up this year. Now's the opportunity for me to come out and make some plays and put myself on the map. So I'm excited.
Yeah, it all takes one play. That's the mindset. I guess my advice I'd give to you now that you need it. But that is going to do it for today's show. Again, 2,500 subscribers on the channel, and crazy growth that we've had so far. But I mean, we're on the road to 3K, and we can't get there without you guys. So if you made it to this point, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and until tomorrow for some fantasy football. Get out of here.